New York City, a beacon of hope, a land of opportunity. This sprawling metropolis, with its towering skyscrapers and bustling streets, has long been a symbol of the American dream. People from all corners of the globe have flocked here, drawn by the promise of a better life, the allure of success, and the chance to make their mark on the world. But also a place of immense struggle. Beneath the glittering surface lies a harsh reality. The city's streets are filled with stories of hardship and perseverance, where the fight for survival is a daily battle. This vibrant melting pot, from its very beginnings, has been marked by stark contrasts. The diversity that defines New York is both its greatest strength and its most profound challenge. Cultures collide, and with them, the dreams and aspirations of millions. Opulence and poverty exist side by side. In one block, you might find luxurious penthouses with breathtaking views, while just a few streets away, families struggle to make ends meet in dilapidated housing. Dreams are chased and often shattered in its relentless rhythm. The city's pace is unforgiving, and not everyone can keep up. For every success story, there are countless tales of dreams deferred and hopes dashed. The city's history is awash with tales of ambition and innovation, but also of crime and violence. From the early days of its founding, New York has been a place where fortunes are made and lost, often in the blink of an eye. Within this environment, fueled by inequality and desperation, rose the infamous gangs of New York. These groups emerged as a response to the harsh conditions faced by many, offering a sense of belonging and protection in a city that could be cold and indifferent. These were not simply groups of delinquents. They were complex organizations with their own codes of conduct and hierarchies, deeply intertwined with the social fabric of the city. They were products of their time. The influx of immigrants, the rapid industrialization, and the stark economic disparities created a perfect storm for the rise of these gangs. They were reflections of a city grappling with rapid growth and social upheaval. As New York expanded, so did the challenges it faced, from housing shortages to labor strikes, all contributing to a volatile environment. The gangs of New York, from the notorious Five Points gang to the Italian mafia, became ingrained in the city's fabric. They left an indelible mark on its history, shaping the narrative of New York in ways that are still felt today. Their stories, often brutal and unforgiving, offer a glimpse into a darker side of New York's past. These tales of violence and power struggles reveal the lengths to which people will go to survive and thrive in a city that can be as ruthless as it is rewarding. These stories remain relevant even today. The echoes of the past can still be heard in the city's streets, reminding us of the ongoing challenges and the resilience of its people. They serve as stark reminders of the consequences of societal neglect and the enduring power of human resilience. In the face of adversity, New Yorkers have always found a way to persevere, embodying the spirit of a city that never sleeps. The early 19th century saw the emergence of New York City's first prominent gangs. These groups thrived in the city's most deprived neighborhoods. Places like Five Points and the infamous Hell's Kitchen became their stomping grounds. The 40 Thieves, one such gang, terrorized the streets with their brazen robberies and violent clashes. Another notorious group, the Dead Rabbits, were known for their fierce rivalry with the Bowery Boys. This rivalry often erupted into bloody brawls. These early gangs were largely made up of young men. Many were immigrants seeking a foothold in the unforgiving city. They found solace and a sense of belonging in these tightly knit groups. The gangs offered protection and a warped sense of community in a time when both were scarce. As the city grew, so too did the ranks of these gangs. Their influence expanded and their activities became more brazen. This set the stage for the rise of even more powerful and ruthless criminal organizations in the coming decades. To understand the proliferation of gangs, one must look at the social and economic conditions of the time. The late 19th and early 20th centuries were periods of significant transformation for New York City. The city was rapidly expanding, and with this growth came a surge in population, primarily driven by immigration. The late 19th and early 20th centuries witnessed an unprecedented wave of immigration to New York City. Ellis Island became the gateway for millions of immigrants, each carrying dreams of a better future. People from all corners of the globe, primarily from impoverished backgrounds, arrived seeking a better life. They came from Europe, Asia, and other parts of the world, hoping to escape poverty, persecution, and lack of opportunity in their homelands. However, what they often found was hardship. The promise of prosperity was overshadowed by the harsh realities of urban life. Many immigrants ended up in overcrowded tenements where living conditions were deplorable. Overcrowded tenements, rampant disease, and fierce competition for work became their reality. These tenements were breeding grounds for illness, with poor sanitation and little access to clean water. These desperate circumstances created a breeding ground for crime. The lack of social services and support systems left many families struggling to survive, and the streets became a place where the law was often ignored. Young people especially found themselves caught between a lack of opportunities and the allure of quick money and power within the gangs. With few prospects for legitimate employment, many youths turned to gangs as a means of survival. For many, joining a gang was not a choice, but a necessity. It provided a sense of security and belonging in a world that seemed indifferent to their plight. It provided a means of survival in a society that had largely abandoned them. The gangs offered protection, financial support, and a sense of identity that was otherwise lacking. The gangs offered a sense of belonging, a perverse form of social mobility, and an outlet for their anger and frustration at their lot in life. They became surrogate families for many young people, filling the void left by absent or struggling parents. This potent mix of poverty, social unrest, and lack of opportunity fueled the growth of gangs and cemented their presence in New York City. The legacy of these early gangs can still be seen today, as they laid the groundwork for the organized crime that would later emerge in the city. The dawn of the 20th century ushered in a new era of gang violence. As the city of New York grew rapidly, so did the underworld that thrived in its shadows. The streets were a battleground, and the gangs that roamed them were both feared and revered. The 5 Points gang, led by the brutal Paul Igo, instilled fear with their ruthless tactics. They were not just a gang, they were an institution in the criminal underworld, known for their organized approach to crime. They controlled much of Lower Manhattan, engaging in racketeering, prostitution, and murder. Their influence extended into politics and law enforcement, making them a formidable force. Another powerful force, the Eastman Gang, dominated the Lower East Side. They were equally ruthless and ambitious, seeking to carve out their own empire in the crowded streets of New York. Led by Monk Eastman, they were notorious for their fierce rivalry with the 5 Points Gang. This rivalry was not just about territory, it was a battle for supremacy in the criminal hierarchy. This rivalry often spilled onto the streets in bloody confrontations. These violent clashes were a common sight, leaving a trail of destruction and fear in their wake. These gangs operated with a brazen disregard for the law. Their activities were so pervasive that even the police were often powerless to stop them. They used intimidation and violence to maintain control of their territories and expand their criminal enterprises. Street wars became commonplace, with each gang trying to outdo the other in brutality. Innocent bystanders were often caught in the crossfire. The fear of being in the wrong place at the wrong time was a constant reality for the city's residents. The use of guns and other deadly weapons, such as the infamous straight razor, became increasingly prevalent. These tools of violence were a testament to the gang's willingness to do whatever it took to maintain their power. This led to a sharp rise in the city's murder rate. The streets of New York became a dangerous place, with the constant threat of violence looming over the city. The brutality of these gangs shocked even the most hardened New Yorkers. The sheer audacity and cruelty of their actions left a lasting impression on the city's collective memory. Their reign of terror left an indelible mark on the city's psyche. The legacy of these gangs is a dark chapter in New York's history, a reminder of a time when the streets were ruled by fear and violence. The rise of notorious figures such as Al Capone, who began his criminal career in New York under the tutelage of 5 Points gang member Frankie Yale, further cemented the public fascination with organized crime. Capone, later infamous for his ruthlessness in Chicago, honed his skills on the streets of New York. He learned from some of the most hardened criminals of the era. Another notorious figure, Arnold Rothstein, also known as the Brain, rose to prominence during this period. He was a shrewd businessman and gambler who recognized the potential of organized crime. Rothstein is credited with transforming the landscape of the American underworld by moving away from traditional street gangs and towards a more sophisticated and structured criminal enterprise. These figures, through their cunning and ruthlessness, shaped the future of organized crime in America. They left behind a legacy of violence and corruption that would continue to plague the nation for decades to come. The battle for control of New York City's underworld resulted in some of the most violent periods in the city's history. The streets ran red with blood as rival gangs clashed in broad daylight. One of the most infamous incidents was the Five Points Gang's massacre of the Monk Eastman Gang in 1903. This brutal display of violence shocked the city and led to a crackdown by law enforcement. The police, often outgunned and outmaneuvered, struggled to contain the escalating violence. Corruption was rampant. Many officers were on the payroll of the gangs. However, public outcry and pressure from city officials eventually led to a more concerted effort to tackle the problem. The formation of specialized units and the implementation of tougher law enforcement tactics began to turn the tide. However, the fight was far from over. The gangs, while weakened, proved remarkably resilient and adaptable.